Hey there, in this chapter, we're going to talk about what cold email is it effective, and is it illegal? Let's get started. Hey guys, Mike from Mailstand here. Today, I'm going to talk about just giving the general lay of the land of basically what is cold email, is it legal, just drilling into GDPR, CCPA. There's just kind of a lot of mumbo jumbo that you kind of hear throughout kind of the cold email world. And I'm just here to kind of give a general overview. So first and foremost, what is cold email? Cold email is literally you sending a one-off personalized email to somebody who has no idea who you are. The person doesn't know who your company is. They never opted into an email. This is a kind of, again, one-to-one email. And when I say one-to-one, I'll drill into specifically why that may be the case and why that is super important. But that is very different. A cold email is very different than, say, a new, almost everybody knows MailChimp, right? MailChimp is basically the number one email sending platform in the world. But MailChimp is designed for what's called newsletters. Right. So that is very different than what a cold email is. Okay. So really the main differences between a cold email and a newsletter is actually people who have opted into your email list. A lot like terms that are thrown around quite a bit are like double opt-in. And so basically the way MailChimp works is you got a form, somebody signs up. On your form, the form sends to an email address, and the email address, you click to confirm the email, and now you're on the list kind of forever, right? So that's newsletter, and that basically MailChimp sends newsletter emails. Mailstand, for example, we send cold emails, and cold emails again are when you send it to a random stranger, but really, the main differences between newsletters and cold emails, newsletters are a lot of the time just kind of broadcasts. They have a lot of images. They have a lot of buttons. You can almost think kind of like e-commerce newsletters or, hey, company update letters. A lot of the time the unsubscribe link is embedded in the top. Cold emails most of the time are text-based only, or maybe they have one very specific image in them. And the idea is that it's personalized, right? It should look like an email where you're sending an email to a friend, right? And so with cold email, you're specifically, sending an email with kind of like personalized messaging and what we call personalized variables. So for example, if I'm sending an email to you, I'm going to use something maybe with your first name, something related to your job title, maybe something related to your region, or kind of common personal traits for you personally, right? So it's text-based. We actually suggest a lot of the time you use text-based. You're using an email signature where like a newsletter, you might not do that. It might just be a big picture of your logo and company icon. So those are the main differences. Something that we also wanted to talk about is it legal to send cold email, right? So a lot of the time people are saying, hey, this person has no idea who I am. Am I even allowed to contact them out of the blue? And the answer is yes. But there is a big caveat there where it needs to be relevant, right? So, there are kind of fine lines between different levels of spam that nobody really talks about, right? So, the first one might be, think of somebody who buys a list of a million emails and sends it, and they have no idea who they're sending it to. They're just hoping to get one or two replies, right? That's a pretty bad, like what we call like black hat spammer, right? Like there's no filtering, there's no personalization. You're just sending out a message, right? You can almost think of it, as something like, I'm an heir to a king, and send me money and I'll send you money back type thing. Those are obviously blatant spams, but as you kind of start to drill down into personalizing, cold emails can be very effective and actually one of the most profitable marketing channels for your business that you can actually have. And so really the way that you can kind of truly confirm that you're not sending spam is the idea of like hyper personalization. And so tools like Mailstand, for example, we allow you to take a list of contacts, and then use what's called variables, which might be a list of people's first names, company name, title. You can essentially look at it as mail merge for back in the day when you were doing mail merge for letters. This is mail merge for email, right? And so there are tactics where you specifically want to segment your audience, and in future chapters we're going to be talking about how to segment so that you can kind of automate your outreach in a hyper personalized way, what we're talking about. So kind of getting back into is it legal to send cold emails? The answer is yes. It just needs to be specific to that person, right? So Mailstand's a cold email tool. It makes no sense for me to reach out to some sort of like local flower shop or construction company or lawn mowing company, somewhere where it's more kind of consumer facing, right? So it makes no sense for me to email to companies like that. But where it does make sense is, let's say I research a company out in Los Angeles and I know they're a marketing agency and they should be doing cold emails, and they have 11 employees, and my hyper segmented audience is between 10 and 20 employees, and I know that we can help them. I'm going to specifically find people I'm specifically going to research that marketing agency. But not only that, I'm not going to blast the whole marketing agency. I'm going to look for one or two very, very specific people within that firm that I know might be a decision maker, right? So I might look for like a VP of marketing or a head of sales or something along those lines where they're similar to my client base. I know that at least when I reach out, they're going to know what I'm talking about, right? With the pain points, right? Either finding new customers or hitting a certain sales quota, right? The language that I am reaching out to them about is going to be relevant, so that when they actually receive their email, yes, it is out of the blue, but it's within their world and they know. So that's mainly the big kind of difference between spam and cold email, right? It just needs to be hyper personalized, and as long as you are being hyper personalized, and then also a really important point is either providing an unsubscribe link or having the ability, basically if they reply back and say, please don't contact me again, you need to have a system in place so that you don't do that anymore. So within Mailstand, we do that automatically for you, for example. So if they reply, you can automatically unsubscribe them. You can mark them as do not contact. So does GDPR and CCPA kind of come into factors with spamming? And the answer is yes, a little bit, right? So within GDPR and CCPA, you still are allowed to send cold email. Specifically in GDPR, there's a section that states, the processing of personal data for direct marketing purposes may be regarded and carried out for legitimate interest. So meaning as long as you believe that the person that you're reaching out to has a legitimate interest for your service, you're allowed to reach out to them. The most important part is that you, if they say no, to unsubscribe them, right? And so related, for example, to CCPA, when you're gathering data around people that you're reaching out to, you need to prove that you have shown that you've done your research on that person, right? So typically the way that people find contact information is, either through LinkedIn or their profiles on their company site or even kind of directories online. So basically having the ability to say, if somebody says, hey, unsubscribe me, one, you're doing that. And then within the CCPA realm, if they request information about, hey, how did you find my contact information or what information you have on me, that you actually provide that and then have the ability to delete that after a certain amount of time. I will say I'm not a lawyer around those. So, if anything comes up, feel free to reach out to that. But really, as long as you are not spamming, being hyper specific, and having the ability to unsubscribe, then you are in a great spot. So generally speaking, here's a picture of kind of how a cold email looks like. As you can see, it's not necessarily like a big newsletter or announcement, right? So like for example, the subject line might be something very vague, or even hyper personalized. One thing to note is that you do always want to be testing different templates for your audience, and we are going to get into that in future videos. But something like this where a cold email, it's only might only be a handful of sentences. Sometimes it might be longer depending on what you might be pitching to your audience. But the idea is that you always want to identify yourself, give the person a way to unsubscribe, and then give a quick introduction and a quick value proposition, and then have very clear next steps, right? So a lot of the time in the cold email world, you, instead of having a button to click on and then filling out a form, a lot of the time it's just easier to say, hey, are you free tomorrow or next week, where you're actually, it is a little bit more personalized. And within Mailstand, we actually have time variables so that you can say, hey, mention the date 2 days past, right? So having the ability, to send outbound emails in a more personalized way is kind of where we fit into this equation. So in the first sentence, you see, hey, kind of curly brackets, first name, kind of mentioning before, that's a variable, right? So that allows you to upload a list and quickly, maybe send 10 or 50 or, a couple hundred emails very quickly just by personalizing that email. So this image that you see here is actually a template, and then it mail merges and sends a personalized email. But generally speaking, that is what a cold email looks like. And then finally, the way that it sends cold emails, there's a couple of different ways, but mainly there's two that you typically see. One is just literally handwriting one-off emails and sending it from your email account, right? So you can do that. More sophisticated users might use a tool like Mailstand, where basically it is mail merge for email. So you might scrape LinkedIn, you might have your team do research and build an Excel file. And then, for example, within Mailstand, all you have to do is drag and drop your Excel file, or we even have integrations with other tools where you just map up the field. So for example, you would map up something like a first name and then build a template, and then hit send, and then it will merge everything and send emails in a very timely cadence. So there are other tactics and pretty complex ways of sending cold emails. So some might be, for example, sending from multiple mailboxes at the same time so that you can send more mailboxes. There's a lot of topics on saying hey, how do I stay out of the spam filter? So using things like warm-up tools, or setting up very specific email records so that you can verify that your email account is you, so that your emails land in the inbox. And if you stay tuned for the next couple of chapters, we're going to dive very specifically into how to build cold email systems, how to stay out of the spam, a lot of these overviews, these specific tactics on that. So thanks for staying with us, and we'll dive into the next chapter soon. Thanks.